I did a lot of reading in June. This isn't even all. I read a lot on my Kindle. I was a Kindle powerhouse this month. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back. I'm so glad and happy to talk to you today about the 11 books I read in June. Applause. Do I hear it? Please. Like, that's incredible. I don't think I've read that many books in a month ever. So proud of myself. I had a great time. Like, this is probably like the biggest roundup of 5-star reads in 1 month that I've ever had too. Like, this is nuts. First we had Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the first in the Addicted series, and I talked about this a little bit in my May wrap-up because I was like almost done with it at that point. This book is about Lily Calloway and Lauren Hale, probably names you recognize if you are in the book community. So Lauren and Lily are like childhood best friends, but they each have secrets. Lauren is an alcoholic and Lily is a sex addict, and they both come from like well-to-do, wealthy families, so they kind of team up together and they fake date to hide their addictions from their families and just kind of society in general. And it's a very toxic, like, enablement, like, situation we have going on. I give this book a 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't 100% for me. I think if I would have read this book before I read the Magnolia Park series, I would have enjoyed it better, because this just kind of felt like knockoff Magnolia Parks plus addiction to me, and I don't know, it wasn't my favorite for that reason. But I do hear that people don't love the first one and they get more into it as the series progresses and like as the other characters become more prominent. So I think for that reason I will probably still continue reading the series. I don't have the second one and it's not like on my radar anytime soon, but I'm not writing this series off. This one just like wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't totally for me. So yeah. Next I read one of my new favorite books of all time, and I don't know why it's taken me so long to read it. I think partially because I wanted to wait until summer to read it. And I don't have my copy because my little sister is borrowing right now, because I need everyone in my life to read this book now, and that is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I'm obsessed with this freaking book, and I know it's like, okay, join the club, like everyone's obsessed with this book, but like it felt like that book was written for me. I related so hard to January's like family history. I don't want to say too much on that, but like I really related to this book, and like literally a book has not made me sob like this book made me sob. I don't think I've sobbed at a book since I read the last Harry Potter book. I literally laid in bed for like an hour after I finished the book, just like thinking about the book and crying, and just like the characters. God, Emily Henry writes the best characters. It's like so, she has this insane talent that she gets you to care about the characters so early on in the book that you are so invested and you understand the characters on such a deep level. And I don't like, all of her characters are like so relatable, but like they're not generic. Like I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know what she does, but she's a brilliant genius, and I just want to give her a little kiss on the head. 5 stars. 5 stars, easily, 100 times over. Like, read it, please. Please, dear God, I'm begging you. And then I had to keep the good vibes going, of course, with People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I think this book has the reputation of just like being maybe like the least favorite out of all of Emily Henry books for a lot of people, and I think that kind of stuck for me too. I don't think I set myself up well reading this as soon as I read Beach Read, but I just needed more of Emily Henry, and I was not ready to like pick up Happy Place. Like I was not emotionally prepared for that. So this was the answer. And I liked this. This took me a lot more to get into than it did with Beach Read. Like Beach Read, I was like 20 pages in, I'm hooked, I'm in, like you got me. This one, it took quite a bit. And I don't know if it ever really like had me by the throat. It was just kind of like, eh. I did still give it 4 stars. I still really like the story. I think this is a great, great, great romance. I like the characters. I think I just couldn't relate as much to Poppy as I could to like other Emily Henry female characters. It's good. It's just not as good as Beach Read or any of Emily Henry others books, but I think you should still read it. I think it's still a great summer read. Yes. And I read one of my most anticipated books for 2023, and that was Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. And I've already talked about this book quite in depth in my reading vlog that I did of just this book, so I'll keep it pretty brief. This book at the end of the day was a letdown for me. I only gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I love Ali Hazelwood's books. I think her romances are just like such a breath of fresh air. I think the biggest issue that people are having with this book is that it's very copy and paste from Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. And I agree with that, but that doesn't bother me as much. I was expecting that to an extent. What I didn't like is that one of the conflicts felt very reused from Love Hypothesis, and I didn't appreciate that. That felt like kind of lousy to me. But that's the only like issue. Like, I'm going to these reading like this is the same shit that like she always does, and I eat it up. I love it. I'm here for it. So that didn't bother me as much. I think I just didn't particularly like their dynamic, and Elsie really bothered me as a female main character. I think it was just her flaws were pushed too much. It was too in my face, and it felt, I didn't like how he called her out on stuff. It was icky to me. The dynamic was just not my fave. And that's what I have to say about that. But I still think you should pick it up, give it a try. I know some people have rated it higher and really enjoy it. I think it still has all the great makings of an Ali Hazelwood book. So if you like other ones, still pick it up. And then I finally finished the Mortal Instruments series. At long last, I finished City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. This took me so long to read because A, it's like 700 pages long, which is ridiculous, and B, I just was not ready to like let go. And I'm still not okay. Like this hurt really bad. I just love these characters so much, and I was not ready to part with them. And the ending was cruel. The ending was very cruel, and like there's some hope too, but like you're despicable for that, Cassandra Clare. Like absolutely despicable. This book also made me cry. Tears streaming. Like, I don't cry at books. I don't. Like, I'm a big movie crier, but I'm not really a big book crier, and I don't know why that is, but this month tears were shed. Tears were shed in great quantities. This was, I think, a great ending to the series. I give this 5 stars, and I don't think it's a 5-star book, maybe, but I just felt like as the end of the series, it was 5 stars. Okay, these ones I did not have physical copies for because I read them on my Kindle. I started a little series called Chestnut Springs. I don't know if you've heard of her. But so now I am fully in my cowboy era. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I need to get the boots and the hat and then yeehaw. So I read Flawless. That is the first one in the series. And I ate this up. This was almost a 5 stars for me, which is crazy because it's like, it's just kind of like a silly little romance. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but it's like 5 stars for me are usually pretty, there's like an emotional element to it. Like it like strikes me deep, like to my heart, to my core, my soul. And for just a silly little romance to do that, like get close at least, that's impressive. It still was only a 4 stars. I didn't feel like it was quite a 5-star. There were a couple things where I was like, but like overall, I never thought that I'd be feral over a book about a professional bull rider, but wow, I need to go to the rodeo stat. This book is great. I thought it was a really great slow burn. I thought the reasons why the characters couldn't be together were like very legitimate, and like I love when the reasons why characters can't be together are like they seem like, how are they gonna fix this, you know, how are they gonna overcome it, because it's like so realistic and it makes the stakes so much higher and like makes everything just like amplified. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, ate it up. 4 stars. Then I read the second book in Chestnut Springs, Heartless, and I was less of a fan of this one. It had me in the first half. It really had me in the first half. I was like, oh my, I love this. And then it went downhill. Major ick for me in the second half of the book. No. Don't let me saying that deter you, because we all have our different preferences. And that just wasn't mine, and that's fine. So for that, it was a 2-star for me. I will say that I discovered through this book that I do like the single dad trope. I do like that. And I've also discovered this month that I kind of like when kids are in books. It adds a fun, I don't know, they're cute and they say funny shit. But there was a trope in this book that I hate, absolutely hate, so didn't like that was in there. And if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. Didn't like that, just didn't like, I don't know, I really liked the couple's dynamic in the first half of the book. And the second half, it gets weird. I didn't like it. So that's just my personal preference. If you liked it, I'm not trying to ick your yum. I'm really glad you liked it. Maybe I need to be less of a prude. I don't know. BTW. These books are, they're on the spice scale. If you are a closed door kind of person, I wouldn't recommend these books. You won't like it. Just a fair warning. Because no one talks about this, and I go and read these books and I think, oh, this is just a silly cute little romance, and then bam, and I'm like, oh my, you know? The next book I read on my Kindle as well, and that is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This book is like highly acclaimed, and so I was very excited to read it, and I was so excited when I saw it was on Kindle Unlimited. I ripped through this book in like an evening, like 3 hours, maybe 4 hours I read this book in. It had me. It really had me. I did not like the plot twist. I don't know how to word this, because I obviously can't spoil it, but I feel like if I don't explain fully and I say something, then it might come off offensive. The plot twist was just, let's just say it's not the route that I like thrillers to take. And that is probably all I can say without spoiling it. Just wasn't my fave. It was not my fave, and so I gave it 2 stars. I did, and that might have been harsh. Maybe 3 stars was more apt, but you know, I'm gonna say it with my chest. You know, that was a 2 stars for me. I thought the writing was phenomenal, and the buildup was really good. I didn't expect the twist, but I was just kind of disappointed in it. It wasn't what I prefer. And that's that's all I think I can legally say. And then for book club, I read Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. This was a reread for me. I read this back in the day, like grade school. So this was a very nice reread for me. 5 stars. 5 stars, and I think because it was had that nostalgia to it, that probably helps the rating for sure. But I love this book. Anne is so wholesome and sweet, and I know that some people don't like this in books, but there's a lot of description of like the scenery and nature, and like I personally really like that because I love like an atmospheric book, and I just like felt like transported, and it was so cozy, and it just felt like a big warm hug. I love this book so much, and like I think if you're gonna read this book, the thing that I will warn is that this doesn't follow like a normal plot structure. It does, like, overall, but every chapter is kind of more like its own, like, mini story of Anne's childhood. So I just keep that in mind. We found in book club that those of us that are very character-driven really love this book, and those that were, like, more plot-driven, it didn't, like, quite live up to, like, what they were expecting of it. So that's good to keep in mind. I adored this book, and I would like to read at least, like, maybe the second one in the series this summer still. And then maybe keep reading like next spring, or maybe even the fall, because these books can be pretty fall atmospheric too. So that won't be the last of reading this series for me. And then I finally read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I read this in 2 days, maybe like mostly in a day though. I can't quite recall, but I devoured this book. And it's mostly because this book was so sad that I felt like I needed to just power through, because I couldn't possibly be like as sad as I was for much longer. I felt this book so deeply. Like, I felt like I was going through everything that Harriet was going through. Like, I felt like I was her. I was the one like going through a breakup, which that's not a spoiler. But I felt like I was going through that, like that feeling that's like that heaviness on your chest. Like that was like, I felt like an elephant had its like not paw, its foot on my chest. Like the whole time I was reading this, I was just like, I felt like I couldn't like breathe. I was just like, this is devastating. I was prepared. Like, I knew that people were saying it was like more sad than her other books. I was ready for it. That's why I kind of put it off. For nothing can prepare you. If you can relate to Harriet and if you connect to these characters, like, buckle up. Buckle up. And if you can't, then I don't think people have enjoyed it. Like, I've heard of people saying that it's kind of slow for them or like more boring. And I think maybe that's when they're just not connecting as much. And, I told you guys that I cried a lot this month. This was the biggest perpetrator. I cried. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I'm going to say this and you guys are going to be like, yeah, okay, right. No, I cried like 9 times reading this book. And one of those times I cried myself to sleep. And I hadn't even finished the book at that point. I was just that upset reading it. That's not normal. That's not normal for a book to be able to make you feel that kind of level of emotion. That's insane. So needless to say, 5 stars. This and Beach Read are like pretty neck and neck for me. I think if I had to choose, I'd probably choose Beach Read just because I don't think I could ever reread this again, if I'm being honest. Like, I loved this book and I think I'll return to like some of the like quotes that I like took note of, but I can't go through that again. And I would love to, because I feel like you'll like pick up on a lot more things throughout it, but I don't think I can. Like, for my mental health, I cannot. And when I tell you, I have therapy next week and I'm bringing this book with me. I'm bringing this book and I'm going to say, I'm about to do some show and tell, and I'm about to open this book up and read you the quotes that resonated with me, and you can tell me what's wrong with me based off of this. Because, man, the last book I actually read in one day yesterday, and that is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. This book came highly recommended to me by my friend Bree, so shout out Bree. This book took me a little bit to get into. I would say it took me probably 100 pages to really like want to keep reading it. I was kind of not forcing myself. I still enjoyed it, but I was kind of like, okay, let's get like one more book, like we can finish in June, like let's like get into it. But once I got to the 100-page mark, then whoo, buddy, I was in it. This book is so good. Like, wow, I had so many good reads this month, and this book was just like the cherry on top. Mary Jane is about a 14-year-old girl who goes to a nanny for this family for the summer, and she's from a very like strict, like well-to-do family, and the family she goes to nanny for is like so different from her own. Like, they're very like relaxed, and like it's the 70s, so like they're referred to in this book like a couple times as like hippies, like meant as derogatory, but like I don't know, like that's kind of a good way to describe them. Like, they seem like normal people for like our day and age, but like back then it was like scandalous the way these people lived. So basically, Mary Jane, this 14-year-old that goes to nanny for them, like she has just like this eye-awakening moment. She's like, wow, like people live like this, and this is what like a family full of love looks like. And she has this whole like really awesome coming of age. I'm a character-driven person, as we've discussed previously, so I loved this book so much. I love this book. You need to read this. It's short, you can read it in one day, and it is so touching. It's not sad. There were a couple bits where I was like a little sad, but not like I'm gonna cry. But it's so touching, it's so sweet. I felt like the end was like maybe a little too, the end was a little unrealistic to me. Just like part of the resolution with Mary Jane and her family. I felt like it was kind of like a big switch was flipped there that I don't really think of as realistic. But that didn't ruin the book for me by any means, because I still gave this a 5 stars. This and Happy Place and Beach Read, like, top 3 books. Top 3 books of this year for sure, maybe overall, like of all time. So that concludes my June wrap up. As you can tell, it was a phenomenal month for me. I don't know how July will even come close. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought. Just a friendly reminder that if you hated something that I loved or loved something that I hated, no hard feelings. Everyone has very different book preferences, and it also very much depends on like what mood and headspace you're in, and like there's so many factors and variables. So please don't be offended by any of my thoughts, and I certainly won't be offended if you hated something that I liked. So, let me know your thoughts, and I'm always happy to have a discussion. So that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.